Start with the occasion. Well, what was going on here? Why were they gathering? What was the significance of this gathering? Who are these people? Anybody do the work? I had to come through the back door sometime, y'all. Good morning. Good morning, Derek Jr. Come on,
It,
Shar.
yeah, it was for the Passover, the
Yep.
Jewish holiday.
Hmm.
Yep. And he was quite disappointed in what was going on in the temple. Like, from what I read, the temple is a place that everybody could come, Gentiles, Jews, at this time, to pray, to be in reverence to God, to show respect. And what these merchants had done is just turned it into something commercial, a marketplace, and the disrespect. And I do believe I read that this is the first time um, it was acknowledged that Jesus had authority. Usually, like a rabbi or somebody that would be able to do things and to say things with authority in the temple, but he came in as Son of God, and made the changes. It did say in my readings that he didn't. The cords were mainly for driving out the animals, not to hit someone. So, yep.
He took it to him like an
Yeah, he
extension
took it to
cord.
him.
Yeah, extension cords, a whole different conversation. Thank you so
Hmm.
much. Good morning, Ms. Bev Washington. Good morning, Karen, Sabrina. Let's see, we got Rhonda Rogers and Myers and Derek Jr., Dr. Michelet. Let's see, and the list goes on here. Lovely Laura. Yeah. Okay, so all right. Anybody else want to add to that? Why were they gathering? What was this whole deal about? What's the significance of it? What would drive Jesus to do this? What was it about this whole exercise? And then we got locale to consider and all that. What'd y'all get? What'd you read? What'd you dig up?
I, I will just add one little piece that I saw
Hmm.
that to what Char said, that it was the Passover actually was um, in reference to when God actually delivered the Israelites from Egypt,
Yes.
what it said. So that's why it
Yes.
was so significant.
Okay, so it was commemorating what had transpired with the deliverance of Israel from Egypt. So they are revisiting this. This is an annual practice that was instituted so that they would not forget what God had done for his people. So it was an act of remembrance. Yeah. And so the locale Jerusalem is where the temple was situated, and the temple was the place at the time for worship, primary worship. And so they gathered there, and there was they reenacted, if you will, in their spaces this action that took place during the Exodus. We won't dig deep into that, but we do remember the blood that was put on the doorposts. And because of the blood that was placed on the doorpost, the death angel passed over that house. And these were the people of God who practiced that, who had the right to practice it, and who did so. And as a consequence, death did not visit, and they lived. And now they are here, the descendants of those who experienced that, celebrating that, commemorating that, and in it, worshiping God to say, man, we are here, we are alive, we have thrived because our God kept us. Mark Clark, I mean, right there, yeah.
Yeah, I was all of that laying the picture, painting the picture, and I was just going to lay a little visual framework. If we didn't remember that
Hmm.
the temple was a magnificent structure,
Hmm.
uh, uh, and it had been rebuilt and been modified and had been restored several times. And at this point, the temple, the structure had outer courts, inner courts, and then the area where the priests took care of the sacrifice. In these outer and inner courts, people would gather, and they would prepare themselves for the ceremony of worship. And you kind of think of it like the parking lot, the vestibule, and the sanctuary, perhaps. A very big vestibule. And inside of this vestibule, or what do we call, what's the other word we use? Foyer. They
Or even lobby.
or lobby. Yeah, that, because it was big. It was big. As you say, they were commemorating this Passover, and they also were commemorating things that Moses had told them to do in the law for sacrifice. So you could come and offer sacrifice for different reasons to restore you in good standing with God.
Yeah.
And so you had all type of sacrifice, not just the lamb's blood on the doorpost, but you had goats, you had bullocks, you had sheep, you had turtle doves for different infractions. And so what they had found out is that, the merchants, well, we can show up with a whole bunch of stuff, and people need that. They've been traveling. They don't have to bring it with them. We'll just have it here, and they can buy it when they get here. And they had moved all the way in the vestibule with this transaction. They had tables, money changers. If you come from a different place and your money was different than the money that they used, they could change your money. They could give you cash back. They had it was just, it was entertainment. It was a festival.
It became
It became a festival.
all of that.
Yeah.
And
And
so
it moved into the temple.
it moved into the temple. The thing of the just want to point out with the animals, selling animals, I know we're talking about Jesus and in his humanity, but we need this background too. This is some important stuff. So these guys, they traveled from all over to meet for this one weekend of activity. And because of the sacrificial practices that Mark pointed out, you had different levels of people. You had poor people, you had rich people, you had middle class people. There were some certain specific things that Moses told them to bring for worship, but there were also provision for those who were poor who could not afford the goat. All right. So, in addition, in traveling, it was difficult for them to be dragging goats and bulls all the way to Jerusalem. Y'all get it now? When you went down south, get that aluminum foil wrapped with some chicken wrapped up in a slice of cake, right? So you're not stopping along the way. That's a whole other story. So when they arrived, these guys are sitting there saying, "Well, I can sell you a chicken, man. I can sell you a pigeon, or whatever it is, that a dove," but they weren't trying to assist with worship. These guys were there to take advantage of those who came to worship. So now, just like Valentine's Day that's going to roll around in 1 month from the day, same set of roses that cost you $50 on Wednesday gonna cost you $150 on Thursday. You get the picture. And that's what they were doing. And then, of course, the money exchange, because your money was of lesser value, and they were not interested in taking your pesos. If you've been to Mexico, you do not want to cross that border and come over here with some pesos talking about you about to do something, ain't nothing happening. So then they were upcharged. So they would add tax to that, basically. Y'all get the picture now. It's important to get the picture. The goal was worship. The primary focus should have been worship. Now, we can apply this to our church today, but we're not going to go down that lane. We're going to leave that to you to work with after the fact. What you say, Mark?
And as he walked through that space and everything you just described, his his human emotions were just, they were building. He was getting
He
a
was
little
fuming,
more and
man.
a little more, a little
He was
more, a little.
fuming.
Yeah, he was fuming, and to understand that he knew that he was the Lamb of God. He knew that he
And
was going
that's
to.
another piece.
That's another piece. But he see them going through this stuff and desecrating this place that he needed to sanctify with his human life. So
And so,
uh,
mm,
I'll just
and
say
so
it worked
finally
in my.
on that piece, finally on that piece, because that another whole study, discussion, conversation, or insight that we need to get into one day. Um, because all of this was really pointed to who Jesus was as the ultimate temple and the ultimate sacrifice. There was some personal connection there. Now let's get into what we see here, and y'all need to open up and talk a little bit. And while we waiting on that, put a 1 in the chat if you read, and a 2 in the chat if you read and did some study. 1 if you read, a 2 if you read and so we got the occasion clear. We understand what may have disturbed Jesus's peace. Now let's talk about the actions and the emotions and the transactions. Miss Ann started it off a little bit on the top end in her reading. Uh, so anybody want to pop in? Let's talk about the emotion. What did you think about what you saw with Jesus, and what were your thoughts about it? And then with the information now shared, what did it do to further your understanding of what went down now? Because if I can use modern vernacular, what really pissed Jesus off here? Now that you know what you know, I'm listening.
To me, it was the disrespect of his father's house, of the temple.
Mm-hmm.
And that bothered him greatly. And what I learned is there's a certain thing as righteous anger. You don't have to get so angry that you lose control. And like you said, get out the kind of the extension cord and just whoop on everybody. It's a way to be angry and not sin. And that's what he demonstrated. He was
Okay.
livid, but he maintained control, and it was purposeful.
Okay. Okay. So Shar into the disrespecting the father's house. Okay, we put a lot on the table. On the front of this, we front loaded some stuff that you can pull from and respond when you look at Jesus's reaction
I think,
to display. Go ahead, Stephanie.
well, and I agree with Shar, but I also think that he felt like the people were being cheated. If I think that because we're talking about his human side, then when I look at that, because I know I get like that when I when I see things that are, ridiculously priced or things because I have that background of understanding wholesale, and sometimes I see people what they're charging for things. So I think some of that anger too was because he felt like the people were being exploited. Like you talked
Mhm.
about with the roses, overcharging people. So I think that human side of him was trying to protect the people as well.
I think so. Who else? Thank you.
I think I agree with her. I think he was angered by the injustice that he was witnessing and the misrepresentation of the character of his father.
What of
And
his father?
the character, like,
Oh,
what
character of his
his
father.
what his
Okay.
father repre what his father represent, what he and his father represented. And so I think I think we can relate to that today too. I mean, I
Hmm.
know I can. Um, and I won't name any evangelicals, but I feel the misrepresentation of who my father is enrages me when I see people misrepresenting and misinterpreting what he stands
Good.
for and what he says.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Who else?
Mm,
Jesus's reaction, Jesus's emotion. I'm listening.
um, Me, it's like a bit different. Could it could other disciples be as angry as Jesus? Like, is it just Jesus who was angry with what was happening?
Mm.
Um, and Was his reaction of like uh asking them to go away is like part of his authority or his being a human? And then also, is he angry because people have been numb or the heart of the occasion was not there anymore?
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. So, question, few questions there. One, were the other disciples angry? Two, um, were the was it that the people were no longer there for the right reason? I think that's two. I think there might have been a third one in there. So it appears, because here we go back to the text versus our imagination and our curiosity. So the text shows Jesus as being the one that was angry. I didn't see anybody else that lined up with him on that. The boys rolling with him were probably just as shocked as the one that were getting whipped, and probably looking at him like, "What's up with dude?" But yeah, yeah, the people, I think, came with the right motivation, but they were met by some folk that were set up to take advantage of and exploit, as Stephanie said, and manipulate the situation for their own financial gain. And if we bring it if to the home, there are things that we practice that's become such a cultural norm for us that we no longer give it attention, and we're no longer sensitive to was transpiring. And then you have the whole crowd effect where you don't want to deal with it. I'm not going to mention it. Yeah, well, if you don't mention it, Mark don't mention it, I'm definitely not going to mention it. And Stephanie said yesterday that me and Mark, we hot mess, so we might mention it while everybody else is looking us up on the side of the head. I just threw you out there, Mark, because I could.
But that's okay. It's okay because I relate to Jesus. What somebody said, I resemble that remark. Um,
Then we need to simonize our watches and get this done.
get this done. And speaking to what Jim said, and also Shar said it earlier, he seemed to have authority to be doing this.
Yeah,
So
Steph
now
said that. I
disciples,
mean,
his
Jim
disciples,
said it too. Go ahead.
his disciples didn't have that authority, and they knew this. So they let him go ahead. I'm gonna let you go ahead. As and in one verse or translation, it said he took his time and made this whip, braided braided the course, and he took his time. And the other versions say he used it skillfully. But
Mm,
one of the things we know about this authority, they had established it because of the way Jesus talked and moved. They could not deny. He
yeah,
would teach in the synagogue. He had been moving through the country teaching, and and stemifying the the teachers and the educated religious leaders. And we did our study in the next chapter. We see who showed up and what he said. He said, "You obviously are a teacher. We don't know where you went to school, but you're sent from God." You know,
yeah.
so he didn't throw his credentials out. They didn't know, but they could not deny that
But
he
he
was.
showed throw up the shade.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I,
Yeah,
and you know,
Rebelo, Pam, Stephanie, that order. Rebelo, Pam, Stephanie, that order.
yeah. One other thing that comes to mind is the fact that, just like Mark said, Jesus had authority. We should all look back as to who is this Jesus. Whatever was said of the Old Testament was about him. He is the sole authority. In fact, He didn't need the authority from men. At 12, he was in that temple. He could say, I must be about my father's business. He took ownership of this business. So there is no other no person is there to correct what needs to be corrected. And you and I are not qualified to see whether Jesus was angry or not. The perfection of how to use anger as an instinct that was created in man is demonstrated in that place. So heaven was saying, this is what is supposed to be.
Mhm.
That when later we're told that there is something called righteous anger, we can see a practical demonstration of it. If Jesus didn't do this in the whole of his life, I'm sure we'll not be able to differentiate between what is truly a righteous anger, and anger that is born out of the flesh. So anger against that which is unrighteous, against that which is ungodly, against that which is injustice and whatever. And deep inside the God who we serve, he sees where this motive is coming from when you and I exercise anger. And therefore, Jesus came to show a perfection. This place is supposed to be a place where people come and meet with God in prayer.
Right?
You have all lost focus of it, and you're now doing merchandise in this place.
Good.
He was
Very
present. He had to correct it.
Very, very clear. There was a purpose for this meeting, and you have jacked it up and made it something other than, which took the focus off of God and placed it on these exchanges that have nothing to do with worship. And so you see motivation for the anger, and then you see divine purpose for the anger. Very good stuff, man. Pam.
Yeah, I was struck by when he said my father's house, which, and I don't know if anyone else would have at that point said that. He emphasized his relationship, his divine relationship with God, which also set him apart. Because I don't know if anyone else um, would have said that, and that showed his divine relationship, showed his divine authority, really, his unique authority in that situation. And I also think when I was doing my study, it said when he made the whip, it wasn't for people, it was to push out the cattle that was there. You know how sometimes you hit the horse or you hit the cow and they start to move. And then he was challenging the institution, which we sometimes should be doing also when the institution is out of line, based on our faith, based on the word of God. We too have the authority to challenge institutions, evangelicals, when they're out of order.
Wish it was just evangelicals. That would make it easier. And let me just say that
I'm on board, paint a broad
I know
brush.
where you're at, Miss Pam.
Yeah.
We good. The thing is this: when we talk about challenging and standing up to institutions or unrighteousness,
Yes,
the best place to start is with you.
that's right.
And if we all could understand that let's talk about our practice of worship, what that looks like, how we do it, when we do it, why we do it, how we reverence that process and space, if you will. That's where it really starts. Now, Jesus, in this case, by the way, when we talk about his authority, we are looking at the unfolding of this manifestation of the Messiah.
Yes,
All of this is a part
foreshadowing.
of that experience that he is showing here, as he has with other signs. He is showing his authority in that space. He's establishing that so that those who lead can see it, those who are following can see it. And this is a revelation. This is a moment of revelation. Now they're actually, being brought into this experience and shaken by it. Because who does this? But Jesus steps in, does it, causes questions, conversation, also revelation, because those who are watching and observing and even hearing the use of his language that he's borrowing from prophetic utterances way before he came, and the words of the psalmist, he's using that language real time. So these people, they get it. They know what's going on. They're hearing in a way that you and I cannot hear unless we do the work. And that's the beauty of it. Stephanie and then Mark.
No, I was just you and Mark were talking, and you had mentioned about how we take things, when we have these events or things that are supposed to be spiritual or religious, or where we're giving reverence to God. And it made me think about Kojic. When we used to have when Kojic was first coming to Memphis, and we used to have all the big events, and I thought about that. You'd have all the vendors, and you'd hear them. I worked in hotel industry then, and I remember they would talk about the money aspect of it. Make sure you gotta have this, and make sure. And I mean, literally, we would take up the walking space. They would allow us to take up the walking space, letting vendors come in to sell stuff to the Kojic, because they knew they would buy it, and then the hotel was making money from the vendors. So I mean, we would make space where there wasn't even really space to have somebody, just to make the money. And I was in hotel management. They would talk to us about what we had to do to get those vendors in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna zero in and swing it to Mark, and then we'll close out because our time is up. So
Uh,
the primary concern is the purity of worship. That's the primary concern that's being addressed here. The money thing is there, and it is an issue. I'm sure there were many other issues that tainted or contaminated the purity of worshiping, and the location being the temple, and Jesus pointing to the fact that he indeed is the temple. But that was coming to the surface. That had not been clearly established. He's building at this point. And then ultimately they get that revelation, well, because he told them, he said, I'll rebuild this in 3 days. They were incensed because it took over 40 years to build it, but they didn't get it. We can be guilty of the same, reading this, looking at this, get caught up in his anger, get caught up in what, get caught up in, how he addressed them. We can get caught up at the end of the day. How do you worship God?
mm,
And the question we could be asking ourselves is what what usual business or things in our own life needs to be overturned by God to bring us into his presence, like, personally, like what are some things that need to be overturned in my own life to enrich um, my
Worship.
worship and being in God's presence.
And the
I
question,
mean,
yeah,
that's an easy.
the continuing question with that is not whether we need God to overturn the table. You might need to go ahead and get into the practices of overturning the table yourself, because you can see and you know. Come on, Mark,
that
wrap it up.
that brought me to that, and you had said it earlier. We're talking about Jesus the human. Now, he had done a lot of miracles. This was not a miracle.
That's right.
This was a physical manifestation of a human being upset, and he did this. This was a manual, physical thing. He didn't call down fire from heaven. He took time. He made a whip. He drove the animals out. He turned over tables, and he did it with the authority of a human, because they
Mhm.
convinced that he was the Son of God. They were not. Even those who wanted to believe, they were still waiting for more information. And he did
Yeah.
this with the authority of a human, of a man that was obviously in and on him. And the whole point of them taking the chastisement You know, he did use the disciples. It doesn't say that they backed him up.
Mm-hmm.
It says that he did it, and they questioned him about what he did. It's like, well, evidently you did it. Can you help us with authority of why you did it? And as
Yeah.
I said earlier, he used the word of God as a human. And these scriptures that he used, they all knew them because they had to memorize them from their youth. They had to read these words: Isaiah, Moses, David. They knew these words,
They
and
heard them over and over and over again.
he used them with skill, power, and authority. And that was
Yeah.
the human Jesus that did that.
Yes, sir. I think that's a good close for the day. Thank you all. Thank you all.